So my talk today, the title I gave Chris is Curiosity, but I want to expand that to talk about curiosity and imagination. And of course, what started me thinking about this topic was just thinking about beginner's mind and Zen mind, beginner's mind, Suzuki Roshi's collection of talks. And he said the goal of practice is always to keep our beginner's mind, and that is not easy. Somehow, how to have that kind of, some words he used to describe beginner's mind are an empty mind, a ready mind, ready for anything, open to everything, mind of compassion, that's boundless and caring about all beings, recognizing our interconnectedness with all beings. And he said, if you start to practice Zazen, you will begin to appreciate your beginner's mind. So for me, beginner's mind has a lot to do with curiosity. Can I meet someone who I don't know with an openness and curiosity, wondering, who is this person? Or even someone I've known for a long time, we are always changing. Who is this person today? And what do we have in common? And what's unique about this person? But meeting everything we encounter with that kind of curiosity. And it's different, I looked up the dictionary definition of curiosity is a desire to know and inquisitiveness. So those are strong qualities of curiosity. But and curiosity often leads us to ask questions. And there's a lot of emphasis in Zen on questions and answers, but often there are no answers to the questions, or the answers are not what we expect them to be. And the questions don't always have to be answered. So I thought about a book by Taigen Dan Layton called Zen Questions. And he says the emphasis can be Zen questions being a verb, not just a noun. We question. And the subtitle of his book is Zazen, Dogen, and the Spirit of Creative Inquiry. So if you think about Zazen, our Zazen practice, as an inquiry, that when we're sitting, we might just be open to whatever comes into our awareness. And Taigen says Zazen offers the actual experience of a deeper awareness than thinking, just being with and allowing something to emerge. We become open to the unknown. Words do not get to it because words take things apart. So sometimes in Zazen, our minds may be very busy, and at other times they may be quieter, and there's just this sense of not having any words. And it reminded me of, there's a line in the Jewel Mirror Samadhi that we sometimes chant that at City Center where I practice. The meaning is not in the words, yet it responds to the inquiring impulse. So that inquiring impulse of sometimes thinking of it as don't know mind, the meaning is, what is the meaning? It's sometimes beyond words, and yet that inquiring impulse may help us to contact something that is greater than ourselves, which is, I think, the mind of awakening. And Taigen goes on to say, somehow being present and accepting this deeper background awareness, not caught by conventional thinking, provides a great resource, opening to wider possibilities. And those wider possibilities, he says, are a form of creative expression that fosters creative energy, because it allows this beyond thinking to inform our everyday activities. So approaching something that we might be doing regularly with a sense of openness and possibility and freshness can bring that experience of zazen into everything we do, whether it's riding a bicycle, preparing a meal, washing dishes, gardening, anything, studying. It can allow us to bring this beginner's mind into everything that we encounter and everyone we meet. So I really appreciate that connection between zazen and what we do when we're not meditating, which is most of what occupies us, I would say. And in preparing for this talk, I found an essay that I had tucked into Taigen Leighton's book by, it was a short essay by Tony Packer, who was an early Zen teacher. She had a center in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. I never met Tony Packer, but she said there are two different ways of questioning. One that seeks answers, and we all want to be in the know, and I think there's a lot of emphasis from the time we're in school to know the right answer, to know things is highly valued. But meditative questioning, she says, is different, and we come to it after having exhausted most conventional answers. Is it possible to hold a question without immediately searching for an answer? It's a different mode of mind, a mind of not knowing. And she says also, it's clear that mere words are not the real thing. So this meditative questioning is, I think, another way of approaching or thinking about Zen mind, the mind of awareness, beginner's mind. And I want to be sure to leave some time for questions, but I when I thought about this mind of questioning and the creativity that can come from not knowing and being open to experiencing things in a fresh way, I thought of Norman Fisher's work and his book on the paramitas called The World Could Be Otherwise, Imagination and the Bodhisattva Path. And he says, the world is more than we know, than we know in the sense that, oh, I know what a tree is, or I know what the name of that tree is, but the tree is not just the tree. We think about how the tree is connected to the earth and the water that feeds its roots, and the whole network of mitochondria that we can't see, and what the tree contributes to the atmosphere, as well as what the tree takes in. The tree is connected to everything, and so are we. So it's that, the world is more than we know, unless we can imagine all of the ways in which we and trees and everything in this room are interconnected. And Norman says the imagination is powerful. It creates its own self-validating truth, strong enough to affect inner and outer transformation. And it is essential for our humanness. And he says imagination isn't an escape from reality. Imagination deepens and enriches reality, adding texture, depth, dimension, feeling, and possibility. And, to go beyond what we think is possible to the impossible, we have to be able to imagine it, to imagine what might be possible. And he, brings that to how we relate to some of the challenges in our world today. To imagine a world without peace, we have to imagine it. We have to really think that what we see as impossible could be possible, and how could that be possible? And I feel that is a source of deep hope, because it's very easy to feel depressed or overwhelmed with some of the challenges in our society, in our country, the wars that are going on. It's very painful. I find it painful to read or listen to the news, and yet I do have, I think, and I would say I have generally been an optimist, but I have also been an activist. So it's not just, wishing that the world were different, but trying to make a difference in the world, in my community at San Francisco Zen Center. Really, I've been focusing on inclusivity along with many of us. We have many affinity groups, including a queer Dharma group, which I helped to start, Young Urban Zen, meditation in recovery, just ways of opening the Zen Center to a wider community. And over the years, speaking out, doing civil disobedience, doing what I could to work towards peace and justice. I was very involved in the Buddhist Peace Fellowship for many years. And I think and also the work of Joanna Macy, who was one of my mentors, who has a way of working through difficult emotions that arise when we are concerned about the environment, when we're concerned about wars in our world, injustice in our country and elsewhere, to feel those emotions and then and it's usually done in a group, this work she now calls the work that reconnects, to help us connect with others and with that imagination in ourselves of a world that could be different, and then looking at what small steps we could take to help bring that change about. And sometimes it's a very small step, but each small step contributes to the next one. So I think I will just share one more thing, which is a poem. One of my favorite poets is Jane Hirschfield, who's a Bay Area poet. She was a Zen student at Tassajara. I don't know if you ever practiced with Jane Hirschfield. She lives in Marin County, and she has made a pledge to, I think she started doing this when Trump was first elected, to do one thing every day that might make a difference in our world. And this is a poem that she wrote on the first day of a new year. I don't know which year it was, but it was recent. And it's called Counting, New Year's morning, what powers yet remain to me? The world asks, as it asks daily, and what can you make? Can you do to change my deep, broken, fractured? I count this first day of another year what remains. I have a mountain, a kitchen, 2 hands, can admire with 2 eyes the mountain, actual, recalcitrant, shuffling its pebbles, sheltering foxes and beetles, can make black-eyed peas and collards, can make from last year's late ripening persimmons a pudding, can climb a stepladder, change the bulb in a track light. For years, I woke each day first to the mountain, then to the question. And that question that the world asks, I'm taking a little detour from the poem. What can you make, can you do to change my deep, broken, fractured? And I'm going to skip to near the end. Today, I woke without answer. The day answers on pockets of thought as though from a friend. Don't despair of this falling world, not yet. Didn't it give you the asking? In her latest book, which this poem is in, is called The Asking. So asking questions, we don't necessarily know the answers. Having that fresh beginner's mind can help us use our imagination to find a way to interact with our world, with the people around us, with our neighborhoods, our cities, our country, and the wider world. So thank you for your attention. And I think we have, do we do a chant or open it to questions?
Oh, yes, let's open it to questions, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so if you
yes.
have any questions, comments, I see Chris, you have your hand up.
When we get in there. So first, I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming here today. And thank you very much for your talk and for sharing that poem. And also for all the work that you do as the coordinator for Branching Streams Sanghas, plural. What I was thinking of that I wanted to ask while I was listening to your talk is the notion that, or what I was wondering is whether the opposite of curiosity would be knowledge or answers, whether that's so, whether you think anything about that, and whether or not it is so, where the balance lies and how curiosity can share life with knowledge, for lack of a better word.
Thank you, Chris. That's a very important question because I don't think we can live without knowledge, and I don't want to disparage the work of scientists or others who, all of us, we go to school, we learn, and knowledge is important. And I think curiosity can lead us into the world of the imagination, where there's a kind of creativity that can come from that. And, if we think about the two truths that we live in, both the world where there's clock time and schedules and study and books, that world, we live in that world, we need to live in that world, but there's also the other truth has to do with the absolute and the way in which we can sense, but maybe not always put our finger on what it is that connects us with everything. And where, Dogen's sense of the time being, that all time is connected, is all time is it expressed moment to moment. And it's a different kind of experience, and we are capable of both and, yeah. So we need knowledge and we need questions that can't be answered. Thank you. Yes. Would you mind saying your name?
Mike,
Mike, hi.
I never saw the connection to your talk about curiosity and compassion. And I don't know if I really have a question that can be answered, but I was surprised by how easy it is to with compassion, inquiry would be part of being compassionate, because how do I help? How do I do something and stuff? Did I misunderstand, or was that some of what you were saying? Because I've never thought about the fact that those two can be very much related and a part of our lives. And so was I daydreaming, or?
No, you heard it. But I didn't dwell on it. Actually, Suzuki Roshi said the beginner's mind is the mind of compassion. And when I think about that, if you're curious about people people you don't know, and open, then you tend to be more compassionate. And I'll give you an example. I'm staying with my sister, Susan, who's married to a man named Bill. And I noticed when they were making breakfast this morning that Bill was making sandwiches, and he was going to take two bag lunches with him when he went to collect their mail. And I asked about the sandwiches. Oh, are you making a bag lunch for yourself? He said, no. Every time I go and walk the dog in a certain place, I bring 2 sandwiches and I give them to someone who's unhoused. And he's been doing that for quite a few years. Every day they make 2 sandwiches. And he said, and then I just connect with someone. Sometimes it's the same person I see day to day, and sometimes it's someone new. And I think of that as a very compassionate way of meeting people who are unhoused, and having a relationship. And they love that these lunches are homemade. They didn't buy something and give it away, which is also an act of compassion. But so that kind of being able to see someone, sometimes a stranger, and understand that we're connected can lead to an openness of heart, a compassion, and wanting to do some things, even if it's like just making a sandwich. It can make a difference in someone else's day. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else ask a question?
It can be a comment or share an experience.
Tova, why don't you
Oh,
tell
someone's
us?
sitting next to you.
Yeah, please.
Oh, I
What
was
is
just
your
gonna
name?
say, my name is Maria, and I just wanted to say thank you, because that was really resonating. I also feel that, the times and how can we help other people too, to feel hope and feel that kind of refreshed curiosity, and, just the imagining that, well, we are here and we can make things the way that we want them, so let's visualize a better way. So I really appreciated hearing that today.
I think it's when that open mind, the curiosity, can actually stimulate the imagination, and we don't feel so boxed in, or oh, this is just impossible. It can be overwhelming sometimes to see some of the challenging events in our country and world. And yet there can be a way of unleashing that sense that there is something I can do, even if it's something small, every day, or today, if not every day. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm gonna go again. Well, so I've noticed that when I hear someone speaking about a person or a group of people in a really uncompassionate way, what they say is like so saturated with a firm knowledge, well, really a belief in what they feel is true about that person or that group, and I think that's an example of the connection that you and that Mike was echoing, were saying about the connection between curiosity and compassion, and that place of not knowing being so generative, if that makes any sense. And I think it's no coincidence that Zen practice and Buddhism in general really tries to cultivate this not knowing, like to set aside our ideas, what we think we know, which we may need if we're going to engineer an airplane or something like that. But other than that, how much we trip ourselves up and how much we create suffering in ourselves and in the world with what we think we know. And one of my favorite koans just ends with not knowing is most intimate. So again, thank you for this theme.
Thank you, Chris. That's one of my favorite koans also. Definitely fits in with semi-beginner's mind and what I was talking about. And I think when we have fixed views, sometimes we don't realize we have them. They may be unconscious, but that can separate us from other people or groups of people. And it's really helpful to begin to recognize them, or sometimes they're pointed out to us, which is helpful. Painful, but helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mark has his hand raised over Zoom. Please unmute yourself and say
and
your
then you
question.
have a question too. Yes, Mark.
Hi, I'm taking it easy here, trying to recover from something, but this is so wonderful to hear you through the magic of Zoom. I wish you could elaborate a little more on the beginner's mind. You seem to brought up some nice new things, the way to think about it, about curiosity and empathy. Could you talk a little more about creativity and the beginner's mind?
Well, as I look at these paintings, I heard, did you paint these? Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, it's that
Go ahead.
there's a lot of creativity, and I wonder if you might choose one and say something about how you came to paint that.
Well, you keep looking at that one. That
Yes.
one I painted in Japan just before we came back. And I was very frustrated trying to do a painting in a very representational style. And I was asking myself, what would I do if nobody ever saw the painting? What would I do? And that came out of it.
And
I just had fun with it, but as I was painting, you know, one thing led to another. I didn't really plan to do that, but after I did it, I was worried, well, will people look at that and laugh, you know? And so I asked my teacher to come and look at it, Mrs. Chiba in Japan. And she sat and looked at it for a long time, and then she said, I like it. That was all she said. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna hang with it. So that one, I call that one raining, something rain, laughing rain, but
yeah,
then I realized it was a painting of the ancestors. Somebody brought that up, I can't think figured who, somebody said that's, looks like the ancestors is,
Yes.
so that's what the name changed to.
I don't know, could you hear that, Mark? Yeah, Jane was talking about this amazing painting and that mind of not knowing what you're going to,
I did not
Do-
plan to do that,
yeah.
it's just.
yeah, she didn't plan it.
Happened, I painted the background very carefully, and then I thought, what am I gonna do now, and that's what came up.
Mhm.
So I just had fun with it.
Yeah.
But I have to say, this is a painting I enjoyed, one of the most I ever enjoyed doing. And Peter said at that time, why don't you just do, cartoon paintings from now on? And I think maybe he was right.
So I think it ties in with this very famous line from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. So if you can approach something with that fresh mind, you may come out with something that you haven't done before or didn't know was possible. And it's the same, I think, sometimes with cooking. If you bring beginner's mind to a bunch of vegetables that you have, you might want to follow a recipe, but you might not, and then see what happens, you know.
Sometimes when I cook that way, Peter will say, I love this dish, and then you say, but every time I like a dish, he says, I never see it again. And that's because I couldn't remember what I did with it.
Yeah, so
Yeah, Jane had been painting for a long time in Japan, and we had a teacher who was a Shingon teacher, a lay Shingon, a woman teacher, who was kind of like our favorite teacher and also our kind of our mother. And and so we all even painted together actually. But when I saw this painting, it was like Jane had arrived. So I quickly said, we have to tell you, Sensei. And so her saying that she liked it was a really big deal.
It was for me.
It was not like, "Oh, no, very nice, dear." It wasn't that kind of feeling at all. It was like, okay, you got it.
It was, it mattered a lot that she came and looked at it. And didn't laugh.
yeah, I can also see looking around the room, people are smiling. And this kind of creativity also can bring delight and lighten up our experience. It's so, I say generative. I don't know, does that help you, Mark? Does that answer your?
Yes, thank you very much. I kind of had an inkling before I even asked the question, but I think you've answered it very well.
I think we all have together.
Yes, the whole group
Yeah.
effort, yeah.
Yeah, so you had a question, what is your name?
Well, my name is Mark.
Another Mark.
Another Mark. Yeah, so I was curious about, for me, when I'm in a place of exhaustion or suffering or in a bad place and wanting to kind of shut out the world, any type of curiosity kind of goes out the window. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's hard to feel that when you're exhausted or maybe just overwhelmed by your life, by the world, but it could be many things. But I think one thing that can help is even in that moment, can you find something to look at that might open it up, like even looking at the sky sometimes can, or smelling a flower, or just if you can remember that things always change, it's not always going to be that way. It may not be able to imagine how you're going to get out of that space, but sometimes just that knowing, well, I can't, this is really painful right now, but it doesn't have to, it probably won't stay that way. And I think of the work of Darlene Cohen, who was one of the early teachers at San Francisco Zen Center, who developed rheumatoid arthritis at a fairly young age and was in a lot of physical pain much of her life. And she developed this, what she called suffering and delight, to see even in the midst of pain, to be aware of something that could bring her joy. Sometimes something very small, but it helped break through that pain. And so I hope that might help you at a time when you're feeling so much pain or exhaustion. And sometimes, we may lead very busy lives and or just sometimes have difficulty getting enough rest for various reasons. And it can be very hard when you're exhausted and tired to feel any breath of creativity or fresh air or whatever. But I think just finding some little thing can really make a difference. Thank you. And I would say sometimes taking a walk, even if it's counterintuitive, if you're too tired to take a walk, but sometimes taking a walk can make a huge difference, or getting outside, even if you're too tired or can't take a walk. Thanks for that question.
Anybody else like to ask? Yes, over here?
Someone else,
A
oh,
question.
yeah.
You had mentioned there was you help run like a recovery group for women. Can you share more about that?
A recovery group.
For women, did you say something about that before you started the talk? I think you mentioned something about that. Can you- Maybe I misheard, I don't know.
We have different, the affinity groups at San Francisco Zen Center.
I think that's what.
We have one called Meditation and Recovery,
Oh, okay,
but it's not specifically for women, and it's combines 12-step work with meditation. And that was the first affinity group at San Francisco Zen Center. And there are Zen centers in our lineage. Like Austin Zen Center has a women's group that meets regularly. And we've had one, so I think the idea of an affinity group is creating a safer space for people who may not initially feel comfortable coming into a Sangha. And having a Sangha within the Sangha, it's like a Dharma gate.
oh,
So when we started our Queer Dharma group at San Francisco Zen Center, which I think we started in 2009, so it's been going for a long time, meeting once a month. It really helped people who are LGBTQIA feel more welcome. And even just knowing that the group was there helped people come to other offerings, or they'd start by coming to Queer Dharma and then start coming to Dharma talks or coming to Zazen and then becoming residents. And so it's, and the same with we have a young urban Zen group that has also made it feel more welcoming and safe for people in their 20s and 30s. And so now we have many more younger people coming to City Center as a result. So is that kind of what you were
yes, that's,
interested in?
yeah, thank you, that's very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool.
Is it just about time for service?